Hello, Chain Reaction here. Today for Technical Tuesday, I wanted to address a question that was posed to me by a friend, and that is, what are modifications and how do you work out when you have arthritis and you have a lot of arthritis pain and joint pain? So today I want to talk about arthritis, and I'd start with a little introduction for those who may not know much about it. There are two main types of arthritis. There's osteoarthritis. This typically will result from wear and tear on a joint as you age. So it tends to affect people when they're older. And although arthritis can affect any joint, when you have osteoarthritis, it typically will be more prevalent in like the hands, knees, hips, and spine. The other type of arthritis is rheumatoid arthritis. And this is an autoimmune disease. So basically what happens is that your body attacks the synovial membrane that surrounds joints, and it causes that membrane to swell. That swelling puts a lot more pressure on the joint and can cause the joint to degrade over time. Rheumatoid arthritis can affect people at any age. Again, it can affect any joint, but it will often be felt in the hands, knees, feet, and wrists. And a lot of people with rheumatoid arthritis will have morning stiffness, so just when they wake up, it can be a lot more difficult to move around. So the important thing to remember when you have arthritis is that you always want to keep moving. I know that because of the pain in the joints, the tendency is to not move because it's painful. But keeping those joints moving is actually very beneficial to the joints and will help prevent further degradation. So movement is very important. When you're doing workouts or when you're doing any sort of movement, you want to focus on a few things. The first is range of motion. A person with arthritis may not have the same range of motion for a particular joint than a person without arthritis. But always being cognizant of what that range of motion is and slowly trying to increase that range of motion over time is very important. The other thing that you need to remember is that a person with arthritis may have difficulty with proprioception or balance. So incorporating balance moves into your routine is another great way to encourage good movement and joint strength. And finally, strength training is not accessible for people with arthritis. The main things you need to remember is that, one, you're not going to be doing really heavy weights. Sorry if you wanted to lift those 30-pound dumbbells, you probably want to put them down. And also, you just want to avoid high reps. So keeping with a light weight, 10 to 12 reps in a set, maybe 1 to 3 sets. Very accessible, and it's very good for your joint health. When you're doing workouts and you're doing strength or resistance training in particular, the best positions for people with arthritis are seated and standing positions. And I'm going to show you some modifications. A lot of movements that I do are on the ground, which obviously are not going to be very comfortable. So I'll show you some general principles for how you can modify them in real time to make them a little more accessible. After you complete a workout, be sure to monitor how you're feeling afterwards. You should not have joint pain that lasts more than an hour or two after a workout. If you do, that means that whatever you did for your workout, you need to reduce that intensity the next time that you do it, okay? So make sure you monitor your health and that you're not feeling continued pain for that long afterwards. It's a good idea if you have arthritis, you should still be working out 3 to 5 days a week with a combination of low impact cardio, such as walking, cycling, swimming, anything that's, elliptical machines, things that are not going to put a lot of pressure on the joints. Also strength routines, doing those 2 to 3 days a week. Again, you're going to be doing low reps, so in the 10 to 12 rep range, maybe 1 to 3 sets based on how good you're feeling, and keeping the weights light is definitely good. And again, adding balance to a routine is great because when you're limiting your motion and not moving a lot, you tend to lose balance. As well. So working on balance and keeping that maintained is very important. So when we talk about modifications for particular moves, there are 3 main ways that you can modify. So the first would be for range of motion. So if I'm doing, for example, a scarecrow move, this is where you have your arms out to the side and you bring your hands forward while keeping your arms up. So this is sort of a hard move for a lot of people in general. So being able to get your arms all the way down, I can't even do that, okay? But you may just have very limited range of motion. So just be cognizant of where that range of motion is, and don't feel like you have to do the full range of motion. So even for a bicep curl, maybe you can't extend all the way down. That's okay. Do the range of motion that feels comfortable for you, and over time, see if you can increase that. The next thing that you want to think about is your intensity. So if I'm doing an overhead press and I'm really struggling, I can always lower the weight or drop the weight, or maybe if you're using bands, use a lot of resistance. And the final thing, as I mentioned before, is thinking about the position. So for upper body strength, a lot of these moves you can do seated or standing. If you're standing and you want to do your overhead press, this is going to engage your core more. And I talked about adding balance into your routine. So you could do a lot of upper body strength on one foot. And notice I'm not like kicking my foot out really high. I always like just make that sound, which means something. I don't know. But, even just standing on one leg in general and just getting a sense of where your balance is a great start. And if you want to incorporate that into an upper body, like a curl or something like that, it's a great thing to do to just very simply add proprioception to your movements. You can also incorporate things like a Bosu ball, I have one over there, and making some sort of unstable surface. That, of course, is at a higher level. So if doing things on one foot no longer challenges you, add a Bosu ball. Or you can just do very simple things like walking on a Bosu ball and working on your balance in that way. Let's see. So I said for seated or standing positions for upper body is your choice, whatever is more accessible to you, okay? Looking at the range of motion, adjusting it as necessary, and using the right intensity. Again, remember, after your workouts, you should be trying to determine, how am I feeling? Am I in a lot of pain? If you're in a lot of pain for an hour or two afterwards, then look at what you did and say, okay, next time I'm going to reduce the weight or reduce the range of motion, etc. So I'll show you a couple of moves that tend to arise. And the first thing is plank position. So being a proper plank is very important. And doing push-ups, they're great full body exercises. Now, of course, if you suffer from arthritis, being in a plank position is not going to be the most accessible. So therefore, you want to take everything to the wall. So remember going back to a standing position. So for a plank, I can basically just lean against the wall, have my feet flat on the ground. You still want to practice good plank positioning. So remember pushing up through your shoulders and pushing right between your shoulder blades to have that extended, having your arms straight, and having your feet straight, your body very stiff. You can do a plank against the wall. And once you can do a plank against the wall, you can do push-ups against the wall. So depending on whether your elbows go out, elbows come down, your feet are closer together, all of those moves can easily just be translated to a wall. And over time, you can move your feet farther and farther back to increase the challenge. The next position that would be very uncomfortable is going to be prone position, so on your stomach. And there are a lot of moves where you can do, like YTWAs, or you can swim, or things like that in a Superman, or what we call Superman position. So a lot of those moves you can actually just take to a standing position as well. So when you're in a Superman position, you're basically kicking your leg back. So you can do basically an arm extension and leg extension, where you're squeezing the glutes, working the same muscles, and you can just do it standing. Okay. Another move that you often will do lying down is a clamshell position. So basically you're abducting your knees away from each other. Here's a move that you can easily translate to a chair. So if you have your band wrapped around your knees, you can just do an abduction this way. There's no need to necessarily be lying on your side. It's just a different way of doing it. And if you're using a mini band wrapped around your legs, the force and the tension is going to be in the exact same direction. Another move that's commonly done is going to be a glute bridge. So lying down and raising your glutes up. Again, since you're working the glutes, I would probably recommend going to a deadlift position. So this is basically just going to be bending the knee slightly, hip shoulder width apart, shoulder center back, and then hinging. So basically, my knees are bent, my butt goes back, my body stays straight, and I move forward and I come back, squeezing the glutes at the top of the movement. And again, depending on how your joints feel, you may have very limited range of motion when you start this. But think about squeezing the glutes as you can, contracting the glutes when you come back to the top of the motion, and then just coming back up. So working the glutes via deadlift as opposed to getting down on the ground to do a bridge. Let's see, what else do I have here? Another one, lying on your back, dead bugs. So basically, this is a core movement where you are extending your knee and your arm, your opposite knee and arm out. And so just doing a lot of core engagement there. And a lot of these moves that you are going to be doing like on your back for core. So another one would be bicycles, okay? A lot of moves that you can do on your back can actually translate to the chair. So for example, for a dead bug, you're extending and raising your knees, so you can just do knee raises by holding onto the chair. So it's not quite the same exercise, but you're still getting a core engagement. Or for a bicycle, you can actually do knee raises and you bring your elbow to your knee. Okay. So that's what I have for some of the moves that I modified today. Feel free to ask me for more modifications, and I will see you next week with more Technical Tuesday tips and tricks and other words that start with T. All right, take care. Bye.